Good evening, everyone. I call this committee of the whole meeting to order at 6 p.m. in Council Chambers. I believe we have no electronic attendance, so we start with public comment. Are you going to leave that since you have the list, or?
Well, they have signed in. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment at this time? And if you would like to, you could just come forward to the podium and please state your name.
My name is Trisha Polkley, and we have a couple of people here that want to talk about Carson's Park and the fence that was taken down. I haven't been to a meeting before to talk about it, so I'm not exactly sure where to stop or, where to lead off from.
We have a 5 minute or 3 minute? Three.
Can we have a 3 minute? Is that what we have at time?
Yep.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
It's a
Okay.
3 minute time limit as well. Thank you.
Okay, so the fence largely has been taken down. There's just one little corner that got put back up, and then a couple of fences that were put up at first baseline and third baseline. But there's no slow children at play type of signs to let you know that there's a park coming up. There's traffic on all four sides of the park. There's only a four-way stop at one of the sides, and some of the other ones don't have any stop signs. And so I think that you guys are probably aware that just on 23rd Avenue side of the park, there are 25,000 cars a week going the one direction, so you can assume almost twice that in a week's time, just going in that 23rd Avenue side. So when there's a game at that park, using the ball field, there's even less, visibility because everyone parks. There's no parking lot, so everyone parks on the street. So now you're down, and homeowners park on the street as well. And to the point where, cars have been hit. Our neighbor's car was totaled. We had a car in front of our house one night that was hit, and, no one stops to kind of leave a note or anything. So when there's a game or even practice, it gets very congested there. So the concern is not just for our neighborhood, because if something happened and a child ran after an errant ball, we would be the ones living right there by home plate. We would be the ones to see it. But I think that fence that we used to have, even if, maybe it wasn't the prettiest or newest fence, it was at least a deterrent to keep the children in, the balls in, maybe keep other things out, maybe even keep your eye kind of seeing that, oh, there's a fence, I see there's a fence now, there's a park. Like, it was important to have it there. And so now that there's a new playground equipment there, there's even more people coming. And they bring their kids, and some of the kids go play at the other part of the park. So it's hard to kind of watch all your kids. Before, the fence kind of kept them all inside. And now with it not there, I guess I don't understand why you would take it down, why the neighbors weren't asked if it was important to any of us. And I'm a part of Carson's Park Keepers, and we weren't consulted either. And our sign is there in the park saying that we kind of take care of that park. We painted the furniture. We've painted some of the other equipment when it was there. We've put the mulch out when it was delivered by the city. Like, we're very involved with the park. So I just don't understand why all of that would happen without consulting the neighbors.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Stevens, also up on the Carson's Park fence removal. So I live right on the fence, or right on the park, first baseline. So I went out this morning and measured where the first base bench is for the players. It's 13 feet from the bench to the sidewalk. So the new fence that they put in along the baseline forces people even to come closer to the road. So, you have a lot of families, you have all those kids at the bench, and there's not a lot of space there. So my concern, potentially car jumps that curb, you're gonna hit kids. Now that the fence is gone, if they, like Trisha said, people park along the road there because there's no parking lot for them to go to. So, how easy is it for a kid just to go say, oh, I need to go get something out of the car, and they turn around and they're in the street. Again, makes it a one-lane road. It's a bus route. And in the spring, every day there's a practice or a game at that field, and there's a ton of kids there, and You know, there's the new playground that's gonna attract a lot more kids. So yeah, we're just really concerned that, you know, there's no barrier with all these activities going on. And I think it's just a matter of time before a kid's gonna get hit in that street. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, my name is Connie Kornmesser, and I'm a resident of the city of Moline. That is my first and foremost important part of being here. The second part is we're obviously addressing the sixth gaming machine, and the information, I believe, is kind of lacking in where the sixth gaming machine came into play at in the industry of the state of Illinois. That was given to us through the state of Illinois in exchange for the state going to take away a bigger percentage of the cut of the pie. So right now we have 33 1/3% that goes back to the state of Illinois. We have 30% that goes to the actual vendor, and we have another 30% that goes to the operator, and then we have 5% that goes back to the city. So by doing this, without a sixth gaming machine, we're losing the revenue that would be available to the city of Moline. That revenue money would give you a lot of access, whether it to put to another good deed environment, whether it to be to Mr. Galt's proposal that he had here a week ago, or take it and put it into any other funding, put it into your general fund, use it for a good deed aspect, additional revenue into a fund to be able to allocate it elsewhere, to me, is what we should be looking at instead of raising taxes. So 6 gaming machines being allowed in the state of Illinois. On the 22nd is when the governor has his last date to sign the bill that he has in hand. At that time, he's looking at a 50-50 split of $250 per machine. I see that the city of Moline is also looking at a high increase of anywhere between $1,200 to $1,850. If you attach an $1,850 licensing fee per machine to an establishment that doesn't receive a lot of revenue off of their gaming, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to lose their gaming. They're going to lose it by their vendor. The second thing that's going to happen is they no longer have enough revenue to keep their business going. A lot of them have been hurt highly by COVID and also with the minimum wage increase. We will continue to have more increases in our industry because this is an industry that is not a needed industry, but it also brings a lot of revenue back into your community. So please be careful, look at the numbers, look at the facts of other cities that are using the 6 gaming machine, not raising your licensing fees to the extreme amount that you're looking at, whereas Chicago is $1,000 per machine, by the way. Other communities are at $25. So that's a big jump. So I just would like you to be careful before going forward and making a strong vote on raising your fees to that extreme and also raising your 6 gaming machine as an allowance for any establishments available. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment, please.
Yes, my name is Jim Garvin. I've been here before. We're going to talk about Parsons Park. I just want to update you. As we go by, as what the neighbors are saying, we call them near misses. In interstate, many times it's a lost time injury. We're saying near misses. Basketball is out in 6th Street. I wouldn't have believed the balls could get what they're getting. Okay? And I would just say heads up, because there are people that I don't agree with this. Drop used to, now they're too cold probably, drop their kids off. And they're very little. Without those fences, the odds are, like Barry Davison, safety director at John Deere Harvest, I was there. If we continue to have the lost time injuries, we're looking at a fatality. And that did happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with public comment this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to questions on the agenda. Oh, is there one? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, can I just want to
Please.
tag on just a little bit. I'm Bridget. I am a resident of Moline and have been for years also. I just wanted to tag on to what Connie was talking about on the sticker fee. I don't know if I missed it or... So in the past, the sticker fees per machine for the locations was they paid like whatever an amount was and we paid a much bigger, like a 3/4 cut. They paid like $200 or $25 or what have you, and we paid the rest. So now, once that goes through and that's mandated, they have to pay half. So if we raise that to 1,800 per machine and they have 5 machines, we can pay it to begin with, but a location will not get any revenue or make anything for months. So they'll have the machines, they'll, have everything going. They cannot, I mean, they could go 4 or 5 months without a commission. And that pretty much puts 20 bars out. So I just wanted to make sure, I don't know how important it is.
Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment? Okay, back to questions on the agenda. Hearing none, we move to the agenda items. Number 1, 2022 public meeting calendar. Is this you,
I think
Madam
I just have
Clerk,
the
or?
clerk address it.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor and Alderman. So in front of you is an alternative calendar from what was attached to your agenda, and this was actually updated today after additional discussion. One of the things that we're considering is the fact that we are going to be adopting and implementing after January 1 the use of Granicus software. And that's going to require us to need additional time for workflow of those items through that system. And so what we're proposing here is to have a meeting every other week. One of the things that we discussed today was the fact that our ordinance does state that we have 3 meetings a month. Generally, municipalities have 2, and some of the reason might be because additional time is needed for staff to prepare documents to come to council, to be able to act on directives that are given by council, and more specifically, as we have more work sessions. So that's what we're looking at here, is kind of just having this flow so that we've got time in between meetings to prepare those things. What it would mean if you decide that you do want to do this is that we would need to tweak the ordinance so that it states 3 meetings unless or except in months where there's a holiday. That holiday does make it difficult for us to add another meeting, but we can certainly go back to having bookending our work sessions or roundtable discussions with regular meetings. It just is going to make it much more difficult with Granicus and for staff to be able to respond. So I wanted to share that with you before opening it for discussion. I did have one question, and that was the holiday in June. It's got a gray background. That is for your consideration. The state has officially made Juneteenth a state holiday. And so it's up to the municipalities if you want to actually close city offices. And with our new Human Rights Commission, we just thought it was best to put that before you and let you decide if you want to do that now or wait. But I'll kind of open up for your discussion, any questions that you might have.
Is there a motion? We're doing questions first, all right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure, because there was the one that was attached, and then there was the second one that you had sent out, and so this is the third one?
It is the
So you're
third one.
asking which of the 3 we prefer?
Well, actually, we were asking you to consider this one.
Okay.
And then we can mark this one up. I think it would be easier to do it that way than to look at 3 different ones. It just get a little bit confusing.
Well, I guess in my estimation, the second one is by far the best option. We had at one point gone to only having 1 or 2 meetings a month, and the meetings were 4 hours, 5 hours. It wound up becoming an issue because it just piled up so many things in that one meeting. It also ran into issues where if you didn't get something done you look at some of these things and, if you don't do it at that point, you're 30 days before the next meeting. We have a work session, so you could cram something in there. But I just want to advise you guys that is a really bad idea. We'll wind up with marathon meetings. The second option that you had sent out for the issue, you said about being able to get information in and then waiting to do the other one. That was the concept of why putting the work session in between, because you don't run into those situations where we get done on Tuesday night, we give some kind of direction to staff, and they basically have 2 days to get it put together so it could be on the agenda the following week. If you had a work session in between, then they would have plenty of time, 10 days, to put whatever together for the following meeting. And so I guess I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the second version that you had sent out. So I'll make that motion.
Does everybody?
And City Council, that was the version that was sent out at 6 o'clock this morning.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Timian. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I also had concerns about cutting back the number of meetings, and obviously that would require an ordinance adjustment, which we could handle, but I understand the need to even out that workflow, but I think the way we do that is adjusting like that expectation of if something needs 2 weeks to get ready for the agenda, then it should just skip a meeting, and that has to be okay. And I think I've sensed that, and there's been things when I've been getting involved in pieces and I follow up, and it's like, well, we're rushing, we got to get them. Well, no, we don't. We need to get it right, and I think that perhaps we can help kind of push that to that expectation of, you know, if it needs that time, even if it has to have a note on the thing that says, this we need in an extra week. I think that paired with kind of sticking with that calendar like we had makes a lot more sense to me. Because I do hear you on the timing, and I've sensed that and run into that issue, but I didn't deal with it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Waldron.
I have a different issue. Reference the June 20th holiday. I would ask you to be very careful about that. Holidays are negotiated into labor agreements for all the bargaining groups, and these have not been negotiated. So if you just unilaterally adopt this holiday, you've mandated it to everybody and you've given them an extra holiday. In my past in negotiating contracts here, we are quite lucrative on holidays. We have more holidays than almost all the other cities around us. So this would be adding another. If you're so inclined to add this holiday, I would tell you to phase it in. Put it in so it comes in the second, third year so that there's an ability at least for council to try to negotiate this into labor agreements. And typically we've had this discussion in the past with Martin Luther King Day. The city of Moline does not participate on that as a holiday. And one of the reasons we've not done that is because we have so many other holidays. We've asked the labor unions to give up another one if they really are interested in Martin Luther King Day, so that we can keep that number at what that number is. By just unilaterally adding another one, I don't think we're doing ourselves any favor. So I would strongly encourage not to adopt that holiday, or at least phase it in. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, Mr. Wendt, the motion you've made does include it on here. Did you want to?
Well,
Does include the.
I don't think, I mean,
It's not officially a
no,
holiday.
yeah, I mean,
remember,
we're
so
just voting on the
This is
meetings.
in gray, correct?
I mean,
Correct. We're not adopting the gray dates.
yeah, and I was just moving the calendar for the meetings, the work session things, I think we still need to,
Right.
to work through.
Okay, so is everyone clear? The motion on the table is to adopt this second calendar that we've received since the agenda came out. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
We are in violation of our ordinance in several places here because we do not have 3 meetings in certain months, even on this version.
That's correct.
What is that? Are we just able to override ourselves, or what does that mean for us?
Your code and good catch, your code does say that you will have 3 cows each month and 3 council meetings. So, but historically, you have had 2 meetings in December. So I would recommend, if we're going with very
so one quick question first before I call on you. So we can adopt this and then come back and amend the code to include, I appreciated the reading or what you said, unless or except in months where there is a holiday, because that tends to be where we find two. But that is to be determined in the future, that wording, but that we can bring that back fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wen.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point. While this is, I think, the best starting point one, I do believe that there probably should be some additions to it, because I think, like having only one actual meeting in the month of February or in July and May. What I'll do is make an amendment to the motion. And so with that, we would make the first a regular meeting, the 8th a work session, and the 15th a regular meeting. In May, we would put another regular meeting on the 24th. In July, we'd make the 12th a regular meeting, the 19th a work session, and the 26th a regular meeting. In September, we'd make the 13th a regular meeting, the 20th a work session. And then in December, we'd make the 13th a work session and the 20th a regular meeting.
Your Honor?
So that's a motion to amend.
Second.
There's a second by Alderman Schmidt. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Walton?
Margaret, we can schedule these, comply with the ordinance, and then if we were so inclined, we could cancel one and still be legal. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got plenty of things to do. I mean, there has never been a shortage of things that we need to talk about, to work through. And to Alderman Waldron's point, if we get to a point where we've actually worked through everything, and we can always cancel the meeting, but I really think that this allows us not to have, because this was another issue with the earlier edition, was not having a meeting the Tuesday after a holiday, because we always would run into issues if you did that, where the agenda would come out, you'd want to ask questions, but staff wasn't here on Monday, and it kind of bunched things up. So I think that this is a good compromise on how to move forward, and we can always cancel things in the future if we work through everything.
Okay, so we would like to confirm the type of meeting and the dates you have amended your motion with
Each month.
for each month. So, you want to go through the entire calendar?
Yeah,
Mayor, I would
that's
prefer to
fine.
go through the entire calendar. There's so many multiple versions now, and I saw so much email traffic while I was in 12, almost 8 hours of meetings today that I really can't weigh in on this. My biggest concern is making sure that we provide quality results and deliver quality information to this council on time. And if we're going to keep an aggressive meeting schedule with an aggressive program for next year, we have to have sufficient time to do that. The Granicus system is only going to be as good as we allow it to be in terms of the time to prepare information for council. Because these are demanding times, these are demanding programs and projects going forward, and personally, my observation after nearly 6 months is that we are rushing always in order to get information to you on time and then bring it back after it's been amended. So I want to make sure that I understand our calendar clearly so that we can communicate that with the officials, the folks at Granicus, so that the administration can manage the flow of information to the council properly and on time. So that's the reason for wanting to make sure I'm clear on this
Okay.
calendar.
So I will read, I do believe I caught all of your additionals and the flipping of what the type of meetings. So I will go through the calendar. Is that okay?
That's fine with me.
Please correct me. And you also took note of his, for these, so we'll double check. January, 11 regular meeting, 18 work session, 25 regular meeting. February, work session on the 8th, regular meeting on the 15th.
No. Regular meeting on the 1st, work session on the 8th, regular meeting on the 15th.
Got it.
Say it again.
February 1st, regular meeting, work session on the 8th, regular meeting on the 15th.
Yep.
March, regular meeting on the 1st, work session on the 15th, regular meeting on the 29th. April, regular meeting on the 5th, work session on the 12th, regular meeting on the 26th. May, regular meeting on the 10th, work session on the 17th, regular meeting on the 24th. June, regular meeting on the 7th, work session on the 14th, regular meeting on the 28th. July, regular meeting on the 12th, work session on the 19th, regular meeting on the 26th. August, regular meeting on the 2nd, work session on the 16th, regular meeting on the 30th. September, regular meeting on the 13th, work session on the 20th, regular meeting on the 27th. October, regular meeting on the 4th, work sessions on the 18th and 25th.
That's
Two
budget.
work sessions or two regular?
That's
That's budget.
actually open for
Right.
discussion as well.
That'll be, we'll update that as we go through the calendar year.
Okay.
November, work session on the 1st. I think I may have missed November. Do we have anything on the 8th?
No, unless
Okay.
something changes in November.
15th, regular meeting, 29th, regular meeting. December, regular meeting on the 16th, regular meeting on the 6th, excuse me, regular meeting on the 13th.
Work
No.
session.
Work
Work
session.
session on the 13th.
Thank you, got it.
Regular meeting on the 20th.
Regular meeting on the 20th.
Your Honor, the November 8th was a budget work session, if that matters.
That's correct. I think it's part of our flexible budget
Correct.
meeting schedule that we'll confirm as we get closer.
Whether we do Saturday or that.
Right,
Right.
exactly. We have that to figure out, so. We're all clear on those dates.
Repeat November, please.
November, work session on the 1st, regular meeting on the 15th, regular meeting on the 29th.
Thank you.
All right, we
Very much
ready?
appreciated. Thank you.
Yep, we're ready to vote.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much.
Well, that was the amendment.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
So we are approving the calendar, we are not approving the tentative roundtable discussion. Is that,
Correct.
I just want to confirm that. Thank you.
We will come, Madam Mayor, we will come back with a schedule of discussion items.
I think that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, the motion is on the table for this item, agenda item, correct?
Yes.
Based on your motion, Mr. Wynn, correct? Yes, all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 2, amending Chapter 4 alcoholic liquor and Chapter 5 amusements of the Moline Code of Ordinances video gaming.
I'm so sorry, I need some clarification. So do we decide on Saturday instead of Tuesday?
I'm
We
sorry.
do need an answer on that.
This?
Yep.
No, we just said that we're gonna get it figured out as we get closer. In October.
Well, I have to have something to, this public meeting calendar by statute has to be posted by the end of this year. So we do need to make a decision on that.
Can that not be a
Decision,
special meeting?
Yeah, the 22nd could be a special meeting.
And I think you voted for regular meeting on the 4th and work sessions on the
18th and 25th, correct.
Yeah.
So we have that one in there. This was remember this is a swap, the 25th.
The 25th would be
Could potentially be an
regular
all-day.
work session, but Bob has asked for an all-day work session from 8 until 4. And the question to council is, do you want to do that on a Saturday or do you want to do that on Tuesday, the 25th? That is the only thing that I really need to know right now.
That was in your agenda package.
Motion to put that on the Saturday.
Second.
All right, motion by Alderman Schmidt. You mean Saturday, October 22nd.
Yes.
Seconded by Alderman O'Brien. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Moore?
Does that mean we would cancel the 25th?
No, it means that we won't
In
meet on the
addition.
8th of November. We'll still have a meeting on the 25th.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, that was Schmidt and O'Brien. Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Yes, sir. Mr. Warren?
And I guess if we're talking about things like that, is there any intent to do a goal setting this year?
Part of the draft roundtables was some strategic planning in June, yes.
So I guess one of my concerns with, and I guess I didn't know what that exactly meant, is historically we've tried to do strategic goal setting as a retreat. We in years past we sometimes did it multiple days and those sorts of things, and tried to do it in the spring, so there would be plenty of time that we could get that as our goal so that it could be worked into the budget. I mean, if you feel that doing it in June, just one night is sufficient, I don't. I think that it's something that, especially with the new council, I think that it would be important to do something, a multiple day, real dig in goal setting in the spring. I mean,
I
I
hear
was
ya.
figuring we kind of talk about that as,
Well, yes,
as a
and
special meeting at some point. But.
yeah, I think we can work together to find that time as he puts together some more of these roundtable topics in a more definitive way. We had talked during our strategic planning about doing it differently next year. And
Yeah.
so we'll continue to have that discussion, but I think we can add that in as a special meeting as
Okay.
necessary sometime in the spring. Okay? Thank you. Now, someone remind me where we are. We need to,
Item number 2.
we are
What?
finally
Do we have to
to
vote on the underlining?
Did we vote on
Oh,
Yeah.
the 22nd?
We did.
We did?
We did.
But we didn't vote then on the underlining. That was an amendment to
That
it.
was not an amendment. We had already passed it, and I made a motion to revise it.
No, we hadn't actually, we had voted on the amendment.
No, we did.
We did, and then we voted on
The
twice.
amendment,
Okay.
the motion, and then this particular motion. So we're good for going to number 2 now. All right, we turn this over to you, Ms. Christopoulos.
thank you. So pursuant to council direction last meeting, we bring you a proposed amendment to chapter 4 and chapter 5 relative to the zoning. Those amendments include increasing the number of EV terminals from 5 to 6 in every category, match the maximum allowed by state law. We allowed for discretionary approval of additional gaming licenses for Class B license holders with some criteria to be considered in the mayor's recommendation and your decision on that. And again, that was to address any issues of inequities among who gets a license or gets a license in that category. We also, at your direction, clarified the definition of principal as opposed to incidental business, in determining the appropriate category of license that an establishment would have. We also, in our council action report, discussed that at some length, with regard to whether just a pure analysis based on revenue meet your goals. And then finally, at your direction, we increase the terminal fee for terminal operators as opposed to the establishments from $1,200 to $1,800 per terminal. Now, in light of House Bill 3136, we also included a credit for, which by the way would require sharing the fee equally between the establishment and the operator. And remember, the operator is the person or company that actually places the gaming terminal in the establishment. So it would, that new legislation, which I believe is still on the governor's desk, would require both of those parties to share that fee equally. So in light of that, we also included an amendment which would give a food and beverage tax credit to local establishments who pay dollar for dollar, who pay more than $50 in terminal fee per terminal. So it's designed to offset any increase by way of that new legislation. So those are our amendments.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve so we can have the discussion and work
Is
through
there a
it.
second?
I'll second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Moyer. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Went.
So I think the best thing is probably to take this into chunks. So I'd like to start with the section that talks about the definition of principal purpose. Because we have a situation, and we've talked about this for a couple of years, in which our code states that for a restaurant, the principal purpose is the serving of food. For a tavern, it is the consumption of alcohol on site. And so some of the concerns that were raised here was, what does principal mean? I had asked that we come back. 50% seemed like a reasonable thing. If the majority of your business is coming from it, that seems like your principal thing. I had shared with a number of you guys today. I pulled the spreadsheet year to date to kind of look at things, and felt that maybe reducing it down to 40% drew I think a better line. The number of establishments that were, there's like 2 that were like 48, 49%, but the rest were all above. And then there was a group that was in the mid-20s or low, all the way down to 0% in their class. Clearly, those are just K licenses that are masquerading as taverns or restaurants. In further conversations, what I'd like to do is adopt this, but for, and I won't do it as an amendment yet because I want to hear other people's thoughts, but the idea would be for restaurants, you would compare the food revenue to the gaming revenue, and if the percentage was 40% or higher, they would qualify as that being their principal purpose. For taverns, you would compare their liquor sales to their gaming, and if they hit at least that 40% threshold, then they would meet that requirement. And so that's what I intend to amend, but I wanted to hear from you guys first. Maybe there's some other ideas that they could be better tweaked.
Mr. Moyer.
Thank you. So how would we address then the Ds and Gs? What would their principle be? Would membership, because then you could end up having the same problem with someone just simply requesting a Class D or a Class G license. Do you follow what I'm saying? So how would you define a membership organization? How would you define their principle?
Well, one option I think would be you combine their liquor and food and compare that to their total revenue, and maybe use that as the. And I think if you do that, and the threshold was 40%, all of them would meet that 40% threshold.
Because I think the like the bowling alleys, for instance, their principal business is a bowling alley, but they have a Class G license. Yeah, I mean, I think that works.
I mean, it's worth a conversation.
Yeah.
Mr. Timian?
I do want to thank Alderman Wendt for setting out this spreadsheet earlier. And in reviewing it, I did notice two very obvious patterns. There were A's and B's, which were just masquerading bar or restaurant, but were really gaming salons. And then there were there were establishments attempting to be bars and restaurants, but still falling below the 40% or 50% threshold. And we see one on here on line 9 that brought in $182,000 worth of liquor revenue, and they would be disqualified with the 40% threshold. And we can't really say they're not trying to be a bar or a restaurant, and that might be their primary purpose. But with the 40%, I feel 40% is too high, and I feel, even just looking at the numbers, a real litmus test for, are you a bar and restaurant, or are you just pretending to be one in order to be a gaming salon, would be a 10% threshold. Just 10% of your revenue is food or beverage, compared to gaming. It feels really low, but the numbers don't lie. The fake gaming houses can't even hit that. And so I think intention is very important. And so that would be the number I would support.
Mr. Schmidt?
I certainly think that the establishments who are operating with zero food and liquor, I think, are not really who we're trying to look at protecting. But we have other businesses that either through not being able to compete or through just having really successful gaming machines, that number kind of gets out of whack. And it falls into like a similar business category as like a gas station, whose primary business is serving of gas, but whose revenue is not coming from there. But if you took that gas away, they would lose that function. And I think there's a component of this thing that the gambling and the liquor sales are tied together. And I really hesitate to do anything that would pull the rug out from any of these businesses we've allowed to support with the gaming to this point.
Mr. Waldron?
Margaret, whether it's 10, 40, or stays at 50, how would staff propose to enforce that?
That is an excellent question.
Thank you.
We would seriously have to think about and develop an enforcement mechanism.
Thank you.
Point of
Yes,
inquiry?
Mr. Wendt?
Yeah, would you be able to, if we did it on a 12-month, the previous 12-month of business, wouldn't you just be able to pull that number and at the time of their application for their license, see if they meet the threshold for the previous 12 months or not?
It does seem like it could be that simple, but I am personally not sure how those revenues are reported. Maybe Madam Clerk could help us out with that.
That's something that I talked to the finance manager, Keith Rebeck, about. And it sounds like they report those. They report those on their own. It doesn't come directly from some audited financial or anything like that. That's all I really know about it.
We collect taxes off of them, so they have to be correct.
I don't know, I'm not sure if Carol knows anything more about it, but I know that,
Yes, Ms.
It's not
Barnes?
your honor system.
Yeah,
It's reported to the state and the numbers are out on the state's website and then they do the calculation of how it's funded back to the city and there's a gating period, so we can't remember the number of days, but within so many days, then the city's portion gets funded.
but that's the
Carol, I think
city's
you're referring to
portion.
just the gaming revenue,
Man, there.
right? Not the food and the alcohol revenue that is reported to the city?
Alcohol comes through the finance department.
Right, and how is that coming from an audited statement, do you know?
There are, well, it's not audited. It comes through monthly financials reported through each individual business. We review them. If it looks out of sync, we get back with the business number. And then when there are audits of the businesses, we can match, and we have our auditors do testing during the audit to make sure that those revenues
There you go.
Great.
Great.
You had something, Mr. Bucco?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the only local government on the Illinois side of the river, which is what we're concerned about, that is actually doing enforcement today is City of East Moline. So my first step would probably be to reach out to them to determine how it is they go about enforcing their ordinance, how frequently they're enforcing it, who is doing it, and what tool are they using. Because their ordinance, of course, is going to be different than ours, I would guess. So we need some basis upon which to create a mechanism to ensure that there is compliance. Because that's really, it's a compliance audit is what you're talking about on an annual basis to ensure that the formula works that the council is proposing tonight, because whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50%, you still have to have a mechanism by which to do the enforcement and to be able to report it back. So I will speak with the City of East Moline and how they're doing it over there as well.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
I'd also like to thank Alderman Went for sending out the information. I just want to remind the board, if we decided to go to 6 machines, that the information that was sent out would be skewed somewhat because they'll have yet additional revenue realized. Also, I think, although I like Alderman Went coming off 50 to 40, I'd like to see go much lower. And I think Alderman Timian brings up a perfect point that it's not only easily enforceable because it's on its face, you can see who doesn't meet the threshold. So I think it can make it easier for staff to enforce, but it's easily defensible that for primary purpose, that if you can't rise to the level of 10%, that, then you are just a gaming facility and not a tavern. So I think that's a safe, easy start. And we know 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we're going to see additional machines. And so we're going to be right back in the same spot trying to shave off some more percentages. So I think 10% is something I could definitely support with our taverns and our restaurants with gaming devices.
Alderman Went. Oh, sorry, Alderman O'Brien.
Well, following what Alderman Williams said, I'm gonna ask a stupid question. Why do we even need a threshold? I mean, why are we kidding ourselves that we have to have a threshold here when we know from the tavern owners that there's gonna be more of these machines. They're gonna keep coming back. I don't know if it'll be next year or the year after that. They're gonna want more machines, and we're gonna open the door for more and more of these machines and less, whatever it is, liquor, food, whatever's gonna be sold, less of that and more machines. So, I mean, is that a legal question? I mean, why do we even need a threshold?
Ms.
Well,
Costopoulos?
Yes, you need some sort of threshold for enforcement purposes. And I believe that your goal is not to, necessarily say how much an establishment should be making, but rather a way to ensure that individuals or establishments are not operating essentially as a class K, just purely a gaming parlor, but under the guise of another license. So it's really a way to keep everybody in their lane, every establishment operating consistent with their license, and then selecting the right threshold to measure that.
Thank you. Mr. Went.
Yeah, if we didn't have some kind of thresholds, then you just have one liquor license or they would just choose whatever the cheapest one was and you do whatever you want. And that's why we have different things, because there's different restrictions, distances from schools, a restaurant versus a tavern. And so there needs to be something. The problem has been historically we haven't enforced it at all. And the idea of this has to be your principal business because a restaurant is different than a tavern, and that's why a restaurant can be closer to a church and a school than a tavern can be to a church or a school. And so that is why we have those things. Now, the point about the additional machines, the additional machine for the next couple of, if we put it at a 40% threshold, that additional machine for the lowest establishments on the percentage list, that would have to increase their gaming by over 33% to put them below the 40% threshold. So I can't fathom adding one more machine would increase their revenue by a third. So I don't think we have that issue if we set it at 40%. And so this is something where 10%, honestly, I think that was taken just because the lowest one on here was 10 and some change. And so if it would have been at 20%, then it would have been if your idea is, and that's okay, if that's what your concept is, just let them be as long as they're not at zero, then that can be your position. But with a straight face, say to this community, your principal business is only 10% of your revenue, I don't think you can say that with a straight face to our community. If you don't want any thresholds, you can vote for that. But with that being said, I'd like to amend this portion and for restaurants, that it's a comparison between food sales and gaming in which they have to meet a 40% threshold. And for taverns, their liquor to gaming revenue has to meet a 40% threshold.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Waldron. Discussion. Mr. Waldron.
I would like to amend his amendment to include what Alderman Moyer brought up about the G and the other one that included both. So I would like to amend that motion to, what was the other one besides G?
D.
G and D to include both liquor and restaurant.
A,
Compared
B,
to
G, and D. Is there a second to that?
Second. Oh.
Second by Alderman Went. Discussion. Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
Again, I go back to the enforcement of this. How in the world are you gonna enforce this? I mean, I know you're gonna get the figures from the state and that type of thing, but what's the mechanism for enforcement? Are you gonna fine people if they go over? Because the machines, people are going crazy on the machines and gambling their paychecks away at the little casino down the street, or, I mean, how is that gonna be enforced if they do go over 1-2%?
That's an issue to take up with legal.
So we
And ours.
could look at fines or suspensions or revocations. Some of that is already in
Yes, that's true. Mr. Williams and Mr. Went.
I'm afraid if we pass this at 40%, we're just gonna run some taverns out. We're gonna lose businesses. They're gonna be punished. When the legislator tried to prop them up and help them by introducing gambling and gaming and making them synonymous with the liquor, that they're being penalized for being successful at that. And what they're gonna do is we're gonna lose a couple taverns, and then we're gonna have someone start a new tavern, and they're gonna start out with a lot of sales for food. But by gosh, if people go down there and gamble, they're gonna close this place down because they won't be able to meet that threshold. I think it's too high, especially coming off COVID. I don't think it's unfair. And I think we should do everything we can do to prop them up, even by going down lower to 10 or 15, to at least encourage more sales. But I think 40 is far too high, and we're gonna pay the price.
Mr. Went.
Two things. There is, as you look at here, 40% is a clear delineation. There are the ones 49, 50%, and then the vast majority of them are well above it. There are a selected few that are masquerading as a restaurant or a bar, but they're K licenses. And then there's a couple of others that are down around 10% or 20%, and that's not their principal business, and that's what our code is. As far as enforcement, I would assume the enforcement mechanism would be upon renewal of their annual license. We have the 12 months of what they paid in for taxes, and so we know what their revenue was, and it's a calculation. Obviously, just like them paying in taxes, if they lie to us, there's an issue. If they lie to us as it pertains to the application, there would be an issue. And so the concern of enforcement, you would have the exact same enforcement regarding how taxes are brought in. It's reported to us, either they're right or they're wrong. If they give us the wrong amount, then there would be issues against it. But if it's not clear, and if it's not clear that this would happen at renewal, after we do this amendment on Ds and Gs, I'll make that amendment that we do it at the annual renewal.
Mr. Macias.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm with Alderman Williams. These are really small businesses, and they're mom and pop shops. I had a chance to meet with one of the business owners, and I asked him, how did you get into this business? And it's just individuals took it upon themselves to, there was an opportunity. But there's bars out there that were really not making a lot of money, and this is really helping them out. And especially after COVID, I just feel we're going to put a lot of pressure on these small businesses, on individuals who are investing in our communities to have a little business here, and it just doesn't feel right. I think there should be a threshold. 40% it would probably be a little, it wouldn't sit well with me because we would be really having to have these hard conversations with these businesses, and that could shut them down. And I don't want to be put in that position to tell them that we don't want you to have a business in Moline, because essentially that's what's going to happen. They will have to shut their doors. So I do agree. The 10%, there's a cutoff. It says that we do have a threshold, but we're willing to work with them because we know it's been tough on our bars here, especially in the last 18 months.
Thank you. All right.
Second word.
All in favor of this motion to put the threshold at 40% for A, B, G, and D?
Point of order, the motion on the table is the amending the Ds and Gs.
Ds and Gs.
Oh, just the Ds and Gs, thank you. That is the one, yes, then we have to go back to, okay. So, all in favor of this motion with the G and D being food and liquor at 40%, correct?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
A roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Nay.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Nay.
Williams, Macias.
Nay.
We have 4 ayes and 4 nays. Mayor, do you care to vote?
Nay.
And that motion fails.
Okay, so now we're back to the motion with A and B at 40%. Food and liquor. Yes, Mr. Timian.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to amend this.
We can't do an amendment to an amendment.
This is
Oh, we
not
were
an
on
amendment to
G,
the
was
amendment.
GD.
It's an amendment to the original
Sure, we
motion.
can. That's fine.
Yeah. G and D was one, A and B was another.
No,
I'm not
A and B
amending.
was level one. D and G was level 2. Level 2 has now
Yes,
been
so now
taken
we're
off, so
okay.
we're back
Thank
to level 1, so
you.
we can
That's why I had to wait.
do level 2.
Thank you, Mr. Tim.
I'd like to make a motion to amend this so the threshold is 10% instead of 40.
Second.
All right, motion by Alderman Timian, seconded by Alderman Macias. Any discussion? Mr. Moyer?
Thank you. Would that be including the D and G in your amendment?
Is there a parliamentary procedure to include D and G in this? Or would I have to take this off the table and bring it back?
You can ask leave to modify, and if there's no objection.
You can, yeah,
I
correct.
would, permission to modify, to include D and G at the same threshold at 10%.
And that permission can be asked to the whole council, correct? So all in favor of permission to modify?
Aye.
All right, any
Nay.
opposed?
Nah.
Okay, 7 ayes, 1 nay. That motion passes, or that you've been given permission.
Modified. Thank you.
Well, technically you can't do that, but that's.
Oh, it has to be everyone. Correct. So technically you can't, because there was 1 nay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So you could withdraw your motion.
We can make another amendment afterwards as well.
Okay, we'll do that. So it's please restate your motion.
Motion is to modify the threshold to 10% for the A and Bs.
Okay.
10% of what?
10% of food and liquor compared to total revenue.
For both?
That was,
Restaurants and bars at 10%?
wasn't, you had them both at 40%, correct?
But no, I had food for restaurants at 10%, and I
Yeah.
had liquor for
That's
taverns at 40%. So if you want 10% for both, you can do that, I guess, but.
Let's just pause for 1 second. Mr. Timian, are you clear on what your motion is?
I do recall the original motion. Janine, if you could help, could you read the original motion, please?
The original motion was to amend and set the threshold at 10%. And if you are,
Alderman Went's original motion.
oh, I'm sorry. So the original motion was to amend and place the threshold at 40% for restaurants, it was 40% of food, and
Food
for
conditioning.
taverns, it was 40% of alcohol sales. So if you wanted to state it the same way and interject 10% instead?
You just strike 40 and insert 10. Unless you want to do it differently.
Or you could withdraw your motion
I
if
will
you
withdraw
prefer.
my motion and
Okay.
start over.
And I'm sorry, I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me. Do I need any votes to withdraw it, or he's?
You need unanimous consent. It's unanimous consent.
All right. Council, do we give unanimous consent to withdraw the motion?
Aye.
All in favor? Any nays? No, that motion is withdrawn. Okay, so now we have a blank slate.
Well, we're on an amendment to the motion.
Correct, a blank slate for that. Where, who has a motion? Or Mr. Timian?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to make an amendment
To the amendment.
to the motion, to the amendment, where for restaurants, which is Class A, the total percentage would be 20% of food. And for Class B, it would be 10% of food and liquor.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Macias. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Walden?
I think everybody's aware that I'm diametrically opposed to gambling in any fashion in the community. I would much prefer us to have zero completely. And I just want to agree with what Alderman Went said earlier about the 10% threshold is laughable at best. 90% of your business is gambling. That's your business. And 10% is laughable, whether they're struggling or not. They were going to struggle whether or not, where those gambling machines were there or not. And I just don't buy it, and I cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Went?
Yeah, by going to a 10% threshold, you're just telling, you don't have the guts to tell the community, I want more K licenses in this community. That you want places where 90% of the revenue is coming from gambling. If that's what you want, you have to take the hard votes and vote that and tell the community that that's what you want. 40% is, I believe, a reasonable. Originally, I said 50%. If you guys put this down and pass 50%, I would support that. That's no problem. I was doing the 40% as a compromise because I think that that is reasonable. I think that that is something that there's a big distinction between those that are like high 40s, 50s, 60, 70, and 80%, and those that are down at 10 and 20%, and where 80% of their business is coming from gambling. I think to vote for this is a cowardly way to allow for more gambling dens in our city. If that's what you want, then be honest about it. Don't put any thresholds at all. I will not support this, but but if this is what you want to do it the right way and tell the public that you're just looking to put more K licenses in Moline.
Mr. O'Brien?
Oddly, I think we agree on that. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we lift the threshold, you're just moving towards more K licenses. And I also think that if we add another machine, we're heading in that direction anyway. It might not be a significant increase, but eventually, with 40%, I mean, people are going to, I mean, you put in another machine, like I said, I'm not a math surgeon, but there's going to be more gambling going on, and more people will be, apt to use those machines. And yeah, they'll buy food and liquor, but you're still going to have the extra machine there.
There was another hand. Did I miss it? Mr. Macias?
Yeah, I just want to say, but I work in downtown Bettendorf, and there's a massive casino that's on our skyline, packed all the time, and there's a lot of dollars being generated. It would be foolish for me to think that people aren't gambling that live in Moline. It happens all the time. They just go across the river, and they spend money over there. People are adults. They can do what they want with their money. And if we can allow some businesses to at least generate some revenue here, allow somebody to go to their corner bar to get some of that without necessarily going to a massive casino, I see it as a plus. And the other reality is people are gambling on their phones now. You don't even need a physical place. Like you can't watch a sporting event. I've said it before, without being bombarded with these apps. It's happening. It's all over. It's more widely acceptable. The reality is people who don't like to gamble, they don't go to these places. They never have to see these establishments. And if they're in the back of a bar, that's fine by all means, as long as they're not, in a place where kids are hanging out or whatever. I see it as being fine. And even at some of the restaurants that I see them, I myself have utilized it for fun. I'm not a gambler myself, but it's there for anybody who decides, hey, I want to try my luck for $5. So, and I would hate to tell some of these businesses, unfortunately, we're going to have to shut your doors down by enforcing this to the level that you're suggesting, the 40%.
Mr. Wen and then Mr. Williams.
So, again, this is a discussion in which if that's the approach, then make a motion to make unlimited K licenses in Moline. If your real thought is, hey, they're all adults, they can do whatever they want, and put all our strip malls have casinos in all of them. We won't have one big one. We'll have 70 small ones. And if that's your thought, then stand up and do that. But to say that 90% of your revenue is coming and your principal purpose is being a bar or a restaurant, that's absurd. And quite honestly, we may, if you set the threshold so low, with some of these establishments, they may spoof and say, hey, we did a bunch of liquor sales, and they'll pay the penny tax on to meet that 10% threshold to get their K license. When you put a threshold so absurdly low, you are opening up the door to people playing games with it so that they could get these gambling den licenses that clearly we tried to already stop in this city and limit in it. But if you don't think limiting those things is a good idea, then be bold, be honest, and tell the residents that's what you feel. To set it at 10% is, I think, is objectionable to our residents, of being honest.
Mr. Schmidt?
This is attempting to use an extremely blunt instrument for an extremely nuanced policy decision. And it is, when we look at the numbers, one of the businesses that falls under that threshold, and I don't know who it is, but they sell $182,000 a year in liquor. But they bring in over $500,000 at their gambling machine, and they fall to 27%. That is the 6th largest revenue source for liquor sales in the city of Moline, according to this list. And if they don't qualify as someone who's operating as a restaurant or a tavern, then the policy tool we're using to enforce this is not working. The reason we have to set a threshold so low is because we are looking to get rid of the outliers and to not shut down businesses. Because if we set this threshold higher, we are doing nothing more but telling Moline we want less bars and restaurants to serve our community.
I will submit that this is a discussion that is a topic that is simply not black and white. And this particular portion is, when you're just looking at the data, it's a much more of a black and white solution. And so there is much more to consider than simply just this number, which is why we have other parts in this ordinance recommendation to consider. So I just want to put that out there because it is not a black and white choice. There are a lot of gray areas with regard to what happens in bars and restaurants that's actually different than what happens with people sitting in a K licensed salon. So I just am pointing that out. Mr. Wen.
I think that is a wonderful point. And if you look at the example you used, they have $182,000 in liquor, and they have $7,500 in food. And what kind of license do they have? They have a restaurant license. They are clearly misclassified in our city. Somehow we gave them a restaurant license, and yet they're doing $7,500 in food and $182,000. Now, was that done so they could get closer to a school and a church? I don't know that. But clearly, these are the things that are important. That restaurant is not a restaurant. That's a bar. And they should have a tavern license. And by doing this, this will help to classify what licenses they should have, because clearly we're not following our ordinance in any way, shape, or form. Now, to your point, I would be open to having some kind of threshold that says, hey, if you sell over $150,000 in revenue, have over $100,000, hell, over $50,000 in revenue in the thing. It could be both things. It could be that percentage, and it could be an amount threshold. And I'd be open to that if somebody would like to move for that. But we can't move because we're already on amendment to it.
Mr. Moyer.
I thank you. Just to go back to that point where you have that situation, you could move to a Class B, but then you'd have to ask the question of whether they're a tavern or whether they're just a retail outlet. So you have some of these places, I think, in that case where you might have, like beer sales out of a cooler to go. And in that case, you would have the high alcohol sales that might then justify that 10%, but still not in principle be acting as a bar. They'd be a liquor store, they'd be a Class C or CC in that.
That's a
aspect.
different discussion that
Yeah.
we should have, but that's not these. I don't think.
Yeah, Class Cs can't have gaming machines.
Correct.
But we need to have that discussion because we have two that have them.
Right.
Because they have a misclassification, again, of either a tavern or a restaurant license. And this will clean a lot of that up, because I think what you may find is one of these may be a convenience store that has a restaurant in it, but really they're just a K license. And so that's where having this 40% threshold, I think, is the first step. And then we can have further discussions of tweaking it. But I'd be very cautious on trying to, and I'm not sure if this is the one, but my guess is the one you're talking about is a gas station that is selling a whole lot of packaged liquor and calling it their restaurant. And if that's what you want to have more of in Moline, that's great. I don't want that. I don't want more of that in Moline.
Okay, we've heard that point 3 times. I think, and we're extending our time here on this particular item. Is there a motion to cease debate or call the question, or is there further debate on with different?
Call the question.
All right. Does that need a second? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Timian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Your Honor,
Yes. That's fine. We are going to continue debating.
that
What?
was on the
Call the
amendment.
question.
Calling the question on the amendment.
Yes.
That was just to
amendment.
close debate.
Just to close debate.
And so if you want to talk, vote against closing debate.
Are we clear what we're doing?
Alderman Went was the only nay on that?
No, I would like to just do a roll call to get it all straight and clear. So this is to close debate on this particular
The amendment to the
amendment.
amendment.
Alderman Went,
Nay.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, so we've closed debate on this particular motion, which means I can now call for the vote. All right. I will also do a roll call on that. Roll call, please.
Can you clarify what we're voting on?
Yes, this, the 10% for A and B, or sorry, let me scratch that. 20% for A on food, 10% for food and liquor on B. Okay?
Correct.
Do you,
Correct.
do you do D and
I did not do D and G, so we can test that afterwards.
All right, roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
nay?
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Nay.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
4 ayes, 4 nays, Your Honor. You care to vote?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Okay. So we have in this agenda item 1, 2, 3, 4 portions of the ordinance. We've just, and yes, what else are we discussing?
We're
Gentlemen?
actually now voting on the amendment.
Yes, right. I didn't know if there was any other discussion. Okay. Question?
No, I urge you not to vote for this amendment. I would prefer it at 50% than it is at 10%. 10% is laughable to our residents. It is setting a threshold to say that the principal business of a bar, if they do 90% of their income from gambling, being their principal business, is objectionable at best, and and I hope that the paper will pick this up and let everyone know that this council has decided that for taverns in the city of Moline, if you derive 90% of your income from gambling, we're saying your principal business is the serving of alcohol, and you are a legitimate tavern.
Mr. Moore.
Hi, thank you. I would like to make a an amendment. Can I do that?
Yep.
Yes.
To add Class D and G at 20% of food and liquor, just to put it in line with the others.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Moyer, seconded by Alderman Timian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Nay.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
5 ayes, 3 nays.
All right, that motion passes. So we're back to the, please, counsel, just counsel me on where we're at, please.
Oh, so we're back to the original motion to amend the ordinance pursuant to the amended motion.
No?
Well,
No, he-
that-
No, we're not.
Wait, that
We're back to the
section-
amendment.
We're to the amendment to the motion,
Yeah,
but it's now at 10%, not the original motion.
That's what she said, pursuant to the amendments on that amendment.
We are voting on the 10%, whether we want, because right now it's 50%.
No, we just,
no.
no.
We're voting on the 20% for restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
10% for taverns,
Yep,
20% for D&G.
yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarity.
That's not the original motion, that's the amendment.
Is there discussion?
As amended.
It's not amended yet.
We can't have this back and forth. There has to be clear direction on where we are at. I recall from the beginning of this agenda item, we were discussing the agenda item as a whole. And then Mr. Wendt spoke directly to this percentage of principal business. And that is the portion we have passed at what you just described, correct? Clerk?
No, I believe that you have to vote on it.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, so is there any further discussion on that portion? Otherwise, I will call for a vote. And what we are voting on is what you just described. So in the interest of time, I will not repeat that. I believe you can all remember that. So I will do a roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Nay.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Nay.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
We've got 4 ayes, 4 nays. Your Honor, would you care to vote?
Yes, I vote aye.
That motion passes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Your Honor, in the ordinance proposed as amended, I'd like to move to strike all changes from section 4. That is actually removing everything we have been debating tonight.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what those changes are to section 4.
Can I please see your copy, if you don't mind?
Which page is that?
Striking the changes, which would be the, that you're not adding 14.
So we're discussing the definition of principal and incidental purpose of business.
Which is what we've been amending.
Correct,
So it's just the definitions?
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion was made by Alderman Schmidt, seconded by Alderman Wendt.
I'm sorry.
Discussion, yes.
As I said earlier, I believe we are taking a blunt instrument and applying it to a far more nuanced issue. And while I take the point that there is an interest in figuring out how we can best enforce this, I don't believe that just by shutting down businesses by guessing what their circumstance might be is appropriate. If I have to go one way or the other, then I go to 10% because I want to keep those businesses open while we figure out what the best approach is. But I would rather leave that piece alone and move forward. And if we need to take another stab at this, then we can. I'm too worried about what we could do if we move forward otherwise.
Mr. Went?
If this is what we do moving forward, then you are in essence saying the number is 0. Because what you're saying is we're about to, when do we do the reissuance of these?
In September.
In what?
September 30th is.
So for the gaming licenses?
No, that's liquor.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
Gaming is January.
So what you're in essence saying, the ones that we know factually are K licenses, they have 0 liquor, they have 0 food, and all they have is gambling, yet we give them an A license or a B license. What you're saying is it's okay to continue as a K, but not actually have a K.
Mr.
That
Schmidt,
is,
Mr.
in
Schmidt.
essence, what will happen in January when they renew their licenses to get their gambling, because they will not meet the thresholds, because there will be no thresholds, because we do not enforce what our current ordinance says your principal business for a tavern is the consuming and serving of alcohol on the premises, and for a restaurant, it is the serving of food on the premises.
All right, Mr. Schmidt.
I would not say that that threshold is set to say that even at 0 you'd be allowed. I think there's been discussion before as to what our threshold is, where it simply states without any sort of percentage or definition. But I think it is easy to say that 0 would mean you do not qualify. And we have that information in front of us, and that is a threshold we can enforce in the current ordinance. So it is said, it would be agreeing to that level of a threshold and to that level of enforcement. I'm not opposed to revisiting it, but I think it's worth noting that we are bringing a blunt instrument to it is just a very much more nuanced issue, where those dollars are not all equal.
All right, Mr. Went.
And you can say 0 is clear. I would have, before having this conversation, I would have thought 10% was clear. Like, there's no way anybody would with a straight face say a principal business is actually 10% of your business. And you can get 90% from one other source and still be qualified as a principal. But that's what this council has done, so.
You have stated that several times. I think we're gonna keep going
Well, no,
to
we're
new
talking about the K
commentary.
license and
Ms.
removing this.
Christopoulos.
So if you choose to strike the amendments in section 4, you're back to your original language, which would still allow for enforcement, but without any definite definition. So you could still consider revoking or not renewing and allow for more flexible standards,
Thank
which
you.
you could do now under your current ordinance.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to strike all changes from section 4 in this ordinance? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Nay.
Moyer,
Nay.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias,
Nay.
4 ayes, 4 nays.
We just keep shutting this down.
Voting I've done in how many
You're
meetings?
working today, aren't you?
Yeah, good luck with those minutes.
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Okay.
Where do we start?
I will say, as a person who has to be a part of the staff work for enforcement, I certainly am going to be looking at this. I have only been in this chair since April, so this is a topic. I agree with Mr. Schmidt that it needs some fine tuning, and I hear all your points, Alderman, about the definitions, et cetera, and about enforcement. So I just wanted to say that before we move on to the rest of the conversation. And where are we with that conversation, gentlemen?
Back to the original motion, or the original
The original agenda item
As amended.
as amended.
as amended. Mr. Went.
So I think the next topic that we could discuss is on page 7, the issue of extending the number of licenses, which discusses the mayor's prerogative to recommend to the council an increase if the mayor so chooses, and if the mayor does, then a majority vote would be required for it to pass. But what this doesn't do is, in a situation, because it kind of gives like a pre-veto, which if we want to approach it this way, that's fine. But what I'd like to add to it is, in the event that the mayor decides not to recommend, that will still be reported to council. And at that case, it would take 6 council members to vote in favor of increasing the license for that application.
I'll second that.
Did that come in the form of a motion? I didn't hear it as a
You're right,
motion.
really.
Sure.
It did.
Yeah.
So the motion is to make.
If you're gonna second it, I'll make it as a motion.
Motion by Alderman Went.
If I get Timian to go along with that.
Alderman Timian to, for the council to know about a mayoral decision not to increase, not to bring the cap request, and then a requirement of 6 votes in the affirmative to raise the cap for an applicant. Motion and seconded. Any other discussion? Mr. Waldron.
I would encourage you not to do any of it and don't allow any more licenses. So please vote no. Don't give anybody the ability to add any more.
Agree.
Are you making a moment to strike the entire portion?
All right. Hearing no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Hey.
6 ayes, 2 nays.
Magic number.
All right, that motion passes. Any further discussion points? Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Looking at the terminal fees and the amounts as we've pushed those forward. I'm sorry, Margaret.
Wait, have we voted on the amendment?
Correct.
Did you want to vote on you voted on the amendment to the
This is the amendment that added the 2/3 override.
We're okay. We're just
Yeah.
where we were before that previous discussion. Yep. Sorry, Mr. Schmidt, go ahead.
I think even knowing that the governor is likely to sign the bill and reassign those numbers, I don't have a problem leaving our amendment where it is primarily gone to the operator as opposed to the location, knowing that the state law would then supersede that and force that together. I'm curious, as we look toward increasing that price, I think that means that we are realistically looking at increasing the cost to those local establishments as well, because of how the state is shifting that back. And I guess I have concerns about that number, and I'm curious to hear if others do or if we're comfortable with that before I make any amendments.
Alderman Went.
Yeah, so this was something I'd been trying to work with Margaret about for a while since this House bill came up. The intent has always been from this council that we did not want to put this burden on the local operators. That's why we had a $50 per machine for them just to process the licensing and those sorts of things. That the concept for this was that this was a fee for the terminal owners. And so once this passed through hasn't been signed yet, but the indication is that it probably will, that we wanted to give relief to the local operators. And so by doing this, by giving them a credit on the food and, or the prepared, is it both sales tax and it doesn't include the sales tax. So that'll be something that I think we should amend and add into that. And I want them to have as much credit as they can so that the money is not coming out of the local operators' hands. And so the increase really from 12 to 18 for the operator in this case, they were paying 12, for the terminal owner was paying 12. Now if you go up to this, they're actually only paying 9. And then the local would be paying 9, but they get a credit back. So this is actually, as it's written right now, is a reduction in fee for the terminal owner. So,
Which means that what has been said here, like we said last week, we wanted the terminal owners to pay more.
so we would need to increase it.
So they're not only taking it out of the tavern owners' hides, they're taking it out of our hides too, because we're gonna give them a tax credit. So the terminal owners, more money will be going to them.
Mr. Went.
So an option could be to increase it to 2,400 or 3,000, still give that credit to the local operators, but capture from the terminal owners the same amount or more than we've been doing. The question becomes, and I'm not sure, is there enough credit? And so the way that this is drafted, it seems to be that they actually, Margaret, for how you drafted this, and this is, I guess my question on why it was drafted this way, it seems to be set up in a way that they have to pay, the local operator has to pay the fee, and then they get a credit sometime in the future. Is there any possibility that we can, I mean, they've already paid in the past, that we could get a credit and have a redemption back to them so that they don't have to float the money by paying us in January and then having to wait months to get the credit month after month until they hit their amount? Because it may be $8,000 of credit for it. I mean, that could take a couple of months for them to get that back. That was never my intent. My intent was I didn't want them to carry it at all. I just wanted them to get a credit for maybe past both sales and prepared food and beverage. Can we do it that way?
I can figure something.
Okay. I guess I would like to, let's start with that. I'd like to make a motion that we strike the portions of this in which the local owners have to float the money, pay it, and then float it, and then wait to get credited back. But instead have a credit for past both sales and prepared food that they've paid in the past as a credit for this moving forward. I'll make that as a motion if anybody wants a
The
second.
motion needs a second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Alderman Went, second by Alderman Williams. Ms. Christopoulos.
So that would then still leave out new businesses for those who do not have sufficient tax
Yeah.
previous tax pay. So if it's a credit going backwards and a new business comes in,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no credit to give.
Well,
Mr. Went.
yeah, we could amend this to say for new businesses that come in your first year, you only pay $50. And then the following year, you would be able to then take a credit from the previous year. Would that be possible?
Ms.
So
Kostopoulos?
that would, in essence, rebate that, maybe a rebate instead.
Okay, for rebate for opening up an establishment in our city? Sure.
Are you modifying your amendment to add?
I'm just trying to feel out what that option, that would be a future, I think we should talk about one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Schmidt, your hand was raised.
Yeah, the issue is addressed. Thank you.
Okay. So the motion on the floor right now is to float, please restate it. I wrote float before credit,
No,
and then I wrote
I'm
rebate
trying to
for new
avoid
opening.
them having to float it. So what I'm saying is that for established businesses, that they can have a credit towards their portion of the terminal fee for past payments of both sales tax and prepared food and beverage.
Got it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Help out the little guy.
Williams,
Anybody now?
Macias.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, that motion passes. Continued discussion, yes, Mr. Wentz.
So now I'll make a motion that says for new establishments coming in, that the local operator could get a rebate of their portion of it for their portion of it, however you need to work that out for what would be equivalent to their portion of it for the machines for their first year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Moore. Ms. Kostopoulos?
To clarify, that would be a rebate of any terminal fee over $50.
Over $50, yes, yes. Thank you
Thank you.
for that clarification.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
This is what I wanted to ask before. Are we then extending that same, are we then required to extend that same rebate to the operators? If we're putting forth that as a tax rebate, would that have to be equally offered in that first year?
So the new legislation says that we shall be shared equally. It does not, and it's brand new, so
Yeah.
who knows how for my rule, but it references payment of the fee, which I believe will still allow you to rebate or credit.
But that didn't answer his question fully.
So can I rebate only to the local establishment, or is it to both the establishment and the operator?
I believe that the motion was to be local.
Yeah.
And I was asking as to the, if that legally is how that would shake out, I guess.
I think you could probably make an argument as a local community. This is our thank you for opening up in our community. It's a one-time thanks for coming in, and
The question is really, it's a home rule issue for that particular item, correct? It's what you want to know. Do we have the power to do that?
well, and she could find out for sure. But
Well, it's not, I don't think it's home rule because it would be whether we are defying a state ordinance, which we can't do.
Okay. Do you have a sufficient answer to your question?
I believe, the worst case is we find out that it's not the case and we will
We
adjust.
have
it.
and we'll address it then.
Okay. All right.
Margaret, could I clarify terminology? Are we talking about terminal owners versus terminal operators?
So the
Thank you.
operator is who faces the terminal in the establishment. The local establishment who would be eligible for the rebate or the credit is the business.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was the second on that?
I was.
Moyer.
Thank you. Alderman Went was an aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Nay.
Waldron?
Nay.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 nays.
All right, that motion passes. Other items in this ordinance for discussion? Mr. Went.
So to the discussion regarding, as it's written right now, with what we just approved, it is actually a reduction in revenue to the city. So I would like to increase the terminal fee, and I'm gonna also ask staff to come back with a report on what establishments will have enough credit or not, so that we can make sure that we don't, that all of our establishments have enough credit that they won't have to pay anything more than the $50. But I think what we should do is increase the, and I guess I'll make this as a motion, increase it from 1,800 to 3,000. And that would result in a slight increase of revenue to the city.
For the owner. The terminal owners, the people that are.
So the terminal owners, well, they have to split it. So the 3,000, they pay 1,500. They currently pay 12, so they would now pay 1,500. The local operators would have to, they'd have to get a credit for the $1,500 for their amount. So I make a motion to increase it to 3,000.
There a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
This will result in a revenue decrease.
I want to see that report before I would vote to increase that number.
Okay.
I'm very open to having this conversation in the future, but I want to see numbers before I would consider that.
But at what number? At 3,000, because they'll have to.
I'd like to see the numbers to understand what number makes the most sense. I mean, I think that is an appropriate thing to look at to setting our revenue. I think a number closer to a total of 2,400 is of kind of remaining flat, but also understanding what does that mean for our local businesses before we make that move.
Mr. Timmerman.
Let's not forget, we also just are allowing an extra terminal. So even though we're effectively reducing the fees, we're also increasing the revenues by adding more terminals. So I'm not convinced it's going to be that negative of an impact on the city's bottom line.
Thank you. All right, further discussion items in this agenda item. Mr. Moyer.
I would, I guess I'd like to make a motion to amend the section 43315 for the class Ks. I'm okay with increasing the maximum for all the other classes from 5 to 6. I would like to leave, or I'd make a motion to leave class Ks at 5 machines.
I'll second that.
Motion by Alderman Moyer, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion?
Somebody's gonna vote yes for something.
Discussion. Mr. Williams.
Is the intent to punish the Class Ks? Or do we want them to shut down? Is that what we're saying to them?
You can ask me.
Mr. Went.
The reason I'm supporting this is the hope is that I believe that the idea of these things are to be an ancillary business to our own ongoing taverns and restaurants. Based on some of our conversation. But anyway, so if that is the case, if they have less at the Ks, then that may result in a patron going to one of our bars or restaurants, and if they really have to gamble there rather than at one of the Ks, and go towards what we're what I believe is the public policy of using it as ancillary business to our bars and taverns.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Nay.
Moyer,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Nay.
Williams,
Nay.
Macias,
Nay.
4 ayes, 4 nays.
You guys are relentless.
It's tough being up there.
Nay.
And that motion failed.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you.
So
I had
everybody
to
gets
think for
6.
1
So-
second.
So you want the Ks to have 6?
Everyone gets
I
6.
got it. Yes, I knew what I was doing. I just had to process for a second. Okay, other discussion items in this agenda item.
God, you know what word it is.
All right, so we are ready to vote on this agenda item, this ordinance, yes?
I'm sorry, I actually have one more issue, and I don't know that I can make a motion on this. Is it possible to limit the use of the word slots to, in a business name, to just those businesses that are a Class K? In other words, So-
Speech issue.
we could make a motion to disallow the use of the word slots in a business that's a Class B or A or other than a Class D. We could no. Okay.
Um, no. Yeah. So, I believe that we jumped into discussion with a motion, with an amendment. I am unclear because we've had a pattern now at least a couple times of speaking the agenda item and then moving into these motions to amend. Do we need this motion to be just a flat out motion?
We've had the original motion, it's already.
No, I believe that Alderman Went made the original.
Yes, it's just that it was, the wording was
Yeah.
moved to amend. Okay, thank you. I just needed a little clarity. Thank you. All right, so hearing no further discussion, this is a vote on agenda item 2 as amended. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Timian,
Aye.
Moyer,
Nay.
O'Brien,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
5 ayes, 3 nays.
That motion passes. Thank you. We are moving to item number 3, Illinois Domus Assignment of Development Agreement. Mr. Vitale or Ms. Christopoulos?
This was actually prepared by City Attorney David Silverman for the city and working with the Illinois Domus LLC from Iowa, who of course is the developer of the 6th Avenue townhouses down the street from City Hall. This is an agreement and acknowledgement of assignment of the development agreement to the Great Southern Bank based on their desire to move forward with a loan of about up to $5 million for development of the adjoining property going forward in 2022, as I understand it. And we would recommend approval of the agreement and the as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Waldron. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 4, 2022 non-union GWI and health insurance.
Mayor, this is, and council, this is a house cleaning item that is done annually. It's a resolution that would allow the administrator to modify the non-union employee group benefit package and incorporate changes relating to wages and health insurance premiums, all of which are budgeted for fiscal 22. And this is in keeping with the past practice of the non-union employee group benefit package, matching up with the AFSCME employee union.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Wentz. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 5.
Mayor, this next item is a resolution that would authorize our chief of police to execute a sole source agreement with Interconnects, not Inter, but Interconnects for replacement of the police department's secure access control system and for the city staff to do what's necessary to implement the new system. The existing system has been in place since the building was built. It is failing on a daily basis, including up until today, where even access to the building or use of the elevator fails. So it is also an ADA issue. So we're looking to have approval of the agreement as a sole source with Interconnects in the amount of $58,000, which is budgeted in 2022. And I might add that you will see other items in the future also coming forward for 2022 because of the necessary lead times in order to acquire things. We have trucks on order since May that to this date do not have build dates from the manufacturer. So it's a real mess in terms of our supply chain.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, second by Alderman Williams. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 6, cab and chassis purchase from Bonell Industries.
Sarah Mark said that she would be here to present this, but unfortunately she's in Maui this evening. So let's wish her well as the snow flies and the storms rage. Anyhow, similar to the other items, again, we're trying to get ahead of the curve here, but this would be a resolution giving Fleet and Facilities Manager ability to purchase the new cab and chassis from Bonell Industries in Dixon, Illinois, on the Sourcewell contract, which we have previously used in the amount of $208,323.85.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Waldron. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 7, swap loader hoist purchase from Swap Loader USA.
And put this together with the previous item. This was a resolution that would give, again, the Fleet and Facilities Manager ability to purchase a hook lift hoist and accessories for Unit 807 from Swap Loader USA, limited for the amount of $36,566.90 out of the WPC fund reserves.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I just had a question looking at the funding source on this and wondering if there's not a more appropriate place in the word is escaping me, the discretionary fund from council, if that budget item is remaining, or if there's, just asking why we're choosing that funding source over potentially others where there may be funds available.
The reason that we've chosen this or the reserve fund is because we've moved from the point when Sarah was planning to replace these 2 trucks. There's 2 trucks we haul biosolids from North Slope and South Slope. They're dump truck. Well, one was a dump truck, and then the other one is a lugger style truck. We're replacing those with hook lift style trucks that are more useful to us and more compatible with the facilities that we expect to have in the future. This swap loader hoist is not the truck. This is just the hoist that goes on the truck, and it was not an anticipated purchase. It's going to be an enhancement for us in the future.
Okay. I guess my question may be more appropriate to Carol in that, is this most appropriate to pull from that fund reserve, or should we look to the council's contingency or an alternate fund?
For you, is it assigned to the WPC, that would be the appropriate funding.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, Mr. Moore.
I can't, for the life of me, cannot remember how healthy that reserve fund is. Is it above minimum? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 8, Miller Trucking and Excavating Agreement for Snow Removal Services.
Mayor and council, this resolution will give the mayor and city clerk the ability to execute and attest to a sole source independent contractors agreement with Miller Trucking and Excavating for our snow and ice control removal services as needed and as ordered by the city, up to an amount of approximately $120,000 is budgeted in fiscal 22 for that purpose. Hopefully we use none of it. There's no snow.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Macias. All right, questions, discussion? Yes, Mr. Waldron.
Yes, Your Honor, I would request of staff that if we're going to go over the 120,000 amount, that we are notified.
Okay.
Last year, we wound up somewhere north of 240,000, and
That's correct.
I would at least like to know when we're
Approach.
gone over the 120.
We might have a clue if we have multiple storms,
Yeah.
but we will. Yes,
a motion
please,
to have
thank you
no
for
snow.
following through with that.
Yeah.
Can we make a
Any
motion
further
not-
discussion?
Can we make a motion not to have storms?
I thought that was the
Nice
motion.
try.
Motion, no snow.
All right, roll call, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 9, TIF number 9, water main project.
Okay, this will be a resolution, mayor and council, that authorize our director of utilities to purchase materials needed for the Quad Cities, from Quad Cities Windwater Company for construction of project 1376, which is Moline Route 6, which is 16-inch water main crossing in the amount of $44,215.62.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Waldron. Any discussion? Mr. Schmidt?
I believe this is a stupid question, but I would rather ask it than not. I presume we are not putting ourselves in any sort of legal situation, but this is, we are sitting on. I'm good with the project.
Maybe not so stupid.
With going against our stated policy, but we are just violating our own policy. Is that what we're doing here? On the sourcing? And we're doing such for timeliness, which I totally understand, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 2022 chemical bids.
Mayor and council, this is an annual purchase that we conduct through the Bi-State Regional Commission Joint Purchasing Council's 2022 Water Treatment Chemical Program, and staff is recommending approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Alderman Waldron, seconded by Alderman Went. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll, there's so many roll calls, I'm just in the mood.
Been a long day.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We do not have an other informational, please. Susquehanna Centennial Planning and Consulting.
Hello, everybody. We are requesting that we have a sole source provider for the Moline Sesquicentennial, which is coming up this coming August. After Jeff and I and Macy have done some research, we have identified a local consultant that will basically take care of all the different aspects of this event that we need to have. And we do believe that by choosing them as a single source provider, we'll also have a higher chance of leveraging the $150,000 that's already budgeted for the project into up to maybe $300,000 or more, so we can do an even larger festival. The group in question, Hive Consulting, has a proven track record of being awarded state grants. They put on Red, White, and Boom, Alternating Currents, and the Big Street Fest. So locally, they're really the only ones that can do it, and we think this is a great way to put on the best and highest quality event we can.
So you're looking for consensus.
We're looking for consensus to go ahead and hire Hive. We do have a deadline that at the end of December to get the grant application in, so hence why there was a little bit of speed here.
That would take a motion, wouldn't it?
Not for an informational. just
Not during the
consensus.
informational.
Okay.
Yeah, the plan is to bring this back to you next week, but we wanted to give you the information, give you the needed background so that you guys can all make an informed decision.
Awesome.
All right.
Any questions?
You've got consensus. Any other questions for him? No? Thank you.
Good.
Any further public comment? All right, hearing none, I close this meeting out, and we have the Pledge of Allegiance for calling the regular council meeting to order. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there an invocation, Mr. Went?
No.
Okay, roll call, please. Alderman Williams?
Present.
Macias?
Present.
Went?
Present.
Timian?
Present.
Moyer?
Present.
O'Brien?
Present.
Waldron?
Present.
Schmidt?
Present.
Your Honor, I request approval of Committee of the Whole Council and Executive Session minutes of November 30th, 2021. Resolutions. Council Bill 1229-2021, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a consultant services agreement for a comprehensive pavement condition survey with Infrastructure Management Systems LLC, IMS, for the amount of $70,978 until project completion or December 31st, 2023, whichever comes first. Council Bill 1230-2021, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a new 5-year lease agreement with the United States Postal Service
in which the city rents parking spaces in the Midtown ramp to USPS. Council Bill 1231-2021, a resolution authorizing the Chief of Police to execute a memorandum of agreement between the City of Moline Police Department and the Quad Cities Open Network Hub, QCon Hub, setting forth the cooperative roles and responsibilities of the Quad Cities Open Network Hub and the City of Moline Police Department, and the utilization of the integrated referral and intake system.
Your Honor, I move to approve this consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. Non-consent agenda, second reading ordinances. Council Bill 3035-2021, an ordinance amending Council Bill General Ordinance Number 3031-2021 and assessing taxes for the City of Moline, Illinois, for the tax levy year 2021 collectible in the year 2022, enacting an ordinance relating to the same subject matter.
Motion to approve 3035.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Waldron, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion? Mr. Went.
So in light of the conversation we had last week, we were able to verify that, and Carol, make sure that I say this right, that there is no ability to prepay the TIF number 7 debt service, correct? Okay. So with that, because the approach that we were told that we were going to do was put, I think, $400,000 towards that, because then we were going to prepay. It's kind of like paying your mortgage early, and you'd reduce the amount of your payment over time. But in essence, if we did that, all that would be doing is adding $400,000 to the reserve, which we've already know is, well, right now with it in it, is $3.8 million over our 25% threshold. Now, there was some discussion on taking some of that money to go towards the parks and to the libraries. And I think that still is a good thing to bolster their reserves, to start to move it towards our thresholds that we're looking towards. I have some concerns with moving forward with this, and all it's going to do, or some portion of it, is just going to bolster our reserves more. We talked about that. I think the good deeds that we did here has resulted in a lower debt service of $354,000 to the community than what we had originally anticipated or budgeted for over the coming years. And so I would like to either, and I want to get some input before I make a motion, but I'd like to take that $354,000 and either let's earmark it for some project or something that is going to be of a benefit to our community, or let's return it to the residents. Because it is cost savings that we did not anticipate, or costs that we did not anticipate that we were going to be having. It's not needed in the levy. We cannot use it. I was in favor of looking into it if it would be a community benefit, but it's not going to be a community benefit by transferring it into TIF number 7. I am open to using that for some specific thing, or we should reduce the levy by that amount and return it to the residents.
Could you please re-explain, because I do not understand it the way it has just been presented.
You want to get the microphone so people...
The way the amended ordinance is written is that all of the $872,000 of savings from the pension obligation bonds was going to be levied in the general fund.
And in pursuant discussions last week, and I apologize that I was not here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 400,000 was going to be transferred into TIF number 7. And the reason for that, as you know, TIF number 7 currently does not have a revenue source at all. So 100% of the principal and interest that is due on the bonds is paid precisely out of the general fund existing reserves. So it's a constant drawdown. And again, we have hopes that there's going to be development in the future, but until that occurs, it is a continual drawdown. So the way it was presented, and it's in your packet, if we placed the $400,000 in TIF number 7, it would more than reduce that obligation by the end of the TIF 7 term by more than half. And again, with hopes that there will be some development so that there's still $3.5 million potentially that would be due at the end of TIF 7 that would not be paid from these property taxes. We were going to record it as a transfer in, and then on the cash flow sheets, show it as being accumulating as a loan, so that if development came in early, that we could begin to start paying those funds back to the general fund.
So what you're saying is it's not that it can't be used at all, moved out of the general fund. It's that it's not going to debt service, it's going into the TIF.
Yeah, it's going towards debt service. So it is paying for more than 50%.
That's the part that needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
It's principal and interest is what it would go to be paid for.
Yes, it is paying for more than 50% of the principal and interest on the TIF 7 bonds.
Correct.
That currently does not have a revenue source other than drawing down existing reserves in the general fund.
Got it. Mr. Wayne.
So, point of information. It'll be transferred over to there. We can only pay X amount of money in 2022, correct, on that bond? We cannot prepay anything more
there's
than...
no prepayment. It's like a $700,000 annual principal and interest. $400,000 would be paid from these property taxes, the transfer from general into TIF 7. The remaining $300,000 would still come out of general fund reserves.
So it's all coming out of the general fund.
But instead of, but here is where the issue lies. As it's budgeted, we were going to transfer $700,000 out of the general fund to TIF number 7, correct?
Yes, out of the reserves.
Out of the reserves. If we do this, we would then only transfer $350 out of the general fund reserves, and then we use the $400 from the levy.
Yes.
Which would ultimately increase our reserves by $400,000.
Only temporarily, correctly, because
No.
we're coming back in January with other allocations.
Yes, yes, there's going to be other allocations. But another thing that we kind of forget when we are talking about TIF number 7 is that in year 2030, by year 2030, those advances from the general fund reserves, and it's on the sheets in your packet, they actually go up from $8.3 million up to $11 million. So in 8 years, we have to come up with an additional $2.7 million in order to keep intact with our fund balance policy of 20 to 25% reserves in the general fund. Otherwise, you're going to be dipping below. So all these excess reserves that we currently have in the general fund, a lot of them you need to have in the back of your mind. If within 8 years, if we don't have development coming, it's continuing to increase. And the sheet is attached in your packets clearly shows that.
Right. So this is a long-term strategy is what you're
Yes.
saying, as opposed to a short-term win.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
And this is sort of following up on that. So I guess the question is, are we putting still that full payment from the reserve into the TIF, and in addition, this $400,000? Where we're really not paying that right now, that is for future payments.
No.
Is that what we're doing, or are we reducing?
We're reducing the
payment.
transfer.
We'll let her explain.
The entire amount is coming from the general fund, but only
400,000 is coming out of the new property taxes. So that amount is gonna sustain the general fund. It's not doing the entire pull down of the 700,000. The other 300,000 will continue to be a cash advance. So in total, it's 700, but there's not gonna be a complete pull down in the reserves. So it is truly helping sustain the general fund for that future obligation.
It's just,
in
So the
both-
desire is to marry it together for the long
Yes.
term.
Yes.
But in the short term, we still have additional money.
Yes,
In
potentially,
this
and
budget
again,
year.
year to year in the budget, we will continue to go through this and we'll address it. And if we get a new community development director and things come on board, that will totally change it. But as we talked about with Moody's, even when we went to issue these pension obligation bonds, they had a great concern. In fact, I was on the phone for more than 2 hours with their analysts, showing the potential impact of how in the world is the general fund going to pay for future TIF obligations in 11 and 7.
Thank you. Yes, so the idea, just in summary, is not to hang on to every dollar, but to use them wisely, because we've had a short-term benefit to our residents, and now we need a long-term benefit to the city to manage our finances, especially in a TIF that has no development and hasn't had any. Okay, thank you. Mr. Wen.
so if that's what you're trying to do, then somebody should make a motion that that money be put into a future TIF lockbox, as they say. If that's really what your argument is, I'm not advocating for that, but if that's what you're, and let's have that discussion. But if all we're doing is keeping it into the general fund and inflating our already enormous excess general fund over our 25%, we're still, even when we transfer those funds over to the park and levy, still going to be around $3.4 million over our 25%. If you guys say, okay, well, let's take some of that and put it into a lockbox for the TIFs to pay those into the future, that's a legitimate discussion as a benefit for the residents. But to pretend that that's what we're doing, but then turn around in January and then spend it on something else, or not spend it and it just sits in the reserves,
The
I'm
idea
not sure.
we had last week was to get our levy question settled, adopt the budget, because we have to do that on this timeline, but not to rush and make knee-jerk decisions with regard to where this money goes. From how I understand it, and the council can correct me, is that we have ideas based on staff recommendations, based on what they've shared with us that are the holes in the budget, but we're not prepared to make those definitive decisions at the moment. I've also identified multiple parks that we need to provide for, to create. We have projects to spend this money on, so in no way are we not doing right by the community by being practicing fiscal discipline when it matters. It matters right now that we make the choice that makes a difference down the road when TIF 7 comes due. And when we have parks to pay for that we might not want to take out as much in bonding for. I want to be very responsible with that funding of these parks. So that's where we're at. Any further questions? Hearing none, roll call, please. Oh, Mr. Wen.
So that being said, what I would like to move, because the discussion before was that we were going to do 400 towards this TIF, we now know that it actually, while it's going to go towards this TIF, it's actually going to increase our general fund by that $400,000. That we take the full 872 and determine that the entire amount of it will go towards parks and library to be allocated by this council in January.
That's a motion. You're making a motion to take the full 800 plus 1,000 and put it toward parks and library?
Yeah,
rather than anything going to tip 7?
Well, it's budget,
I'm asking, just clarify your motion.
yes.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, that motion fails for lack of a second. Any further questions? Yes, Mr. Schmidt?
I understand long-term what we're trying to do in attaching that source that's got kind of every year as we had projected through. I also agree with you. We are just increasing in that short term. But I think I prefer to opt for, we've set a course of a path of where we will work on that. And I think rather than assigning that when we could use that somewhere else that may need it more urgently, I just want to give ourselves a little time to make that choice. And it's unfortunate to have it happen so quickly and put us in this position, but I would rather us make that decision that seems more fiscally sound.
Mr. Waldron?
And I agree with you that Parks and Library is a good place to put this money once we know what's coming in 2022. I hate to obligate it all to Parks and Library right now, and then something else comes up that we really would like to fund. So I'm more for waiting a little bit and not obligating it right now to Parks and Library.
We still have an excess $3 million.
Well, the point is, we're still below, where was this? When fiscal year 21 started, we were at 4.5 million. So here, we are still below where we started last year. So we're steadily bringing that reserve into the policy level as we identify projects, as more comes our way, because we have infrastructure bill and we have so many things to dole out and so many things for our economic development to get started on. So this deliberate approach, for me, is preferable. Any further questions, comments? Roll call, please, clerk.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Oops, I'm sorry. Alderman O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion passes. You are back in charge.
Thank you. Council Bill 3034-2021. An ordinance making appropriations for corporate purposes for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022 and ending December 31, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Waldron, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. Council Bill, Council Bill 4008-2021, a special ordinance requesting the county clerk not to extend 2021 taxes for payment of principal and interest for the general obligation corporate purpose bonds, excuse me, 2010A refunding, general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2011B refunding, general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2012H refunding, general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2016 refunding, taxable general obligation refunding bonds series 2020A, and general obligation refunding bonds series 2020B, general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2021A refunding, general obligation corporate bonds series 2021B refunding, and general obligation corporate bonds series 2021D.
Move to approve ordinance 4008-2021.
Motion by Alderman Wentz,
Second.
second by Alderman Schmidt. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. Resolutions. Council Bill 1232-2021, a resolution adopting a budget for corporate purposes for the fiscal year 2022.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderman Went,
Second.
second by Alderman O'Brien. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
Went?
Wait, you
Aye.
started in the
I'm
wrong
sorry.
place.
I know I did. All right. Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. Council Bill 1233-2021, a resolution supporting the amendment to the redevelopment agreement with Illinois Domus.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Nguyen, second by Alderman Schmidt. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Macias?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you. Miscellaneous business, sir.
Your Honor, today's December 7th. We all know what happened in 1941 on December 7th, and I just want to give a shout out to all of our veterans and a big thank you for all the people that stand against the Hun every day on our behalf.
Thank you. Mr. Macias.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Nguyen.
Couple of quick questions. We moved today for the TIF number 9 water project, partly because of the funds that we have in there that needed to be spent. But there was some discussion about the South Park Mall TIF as well having some funds in it. And I thought that there was something in the works for that as well. I just want to make sure because we're
It's forthcoming.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week?
14th.
Okay.
But I'll let Joe explain.
Oh, I mean,
He's up. He's up.
Yeah, we'll have some materials for street light replacements coming on the for the next 14th. The South Park TIF is really kind of tucked in around South Park. We tried to do some stormwater improvements along the ditch area and some IDOT territory, and just with time constraints couldn't get that coordinated with IDOT. But we do have some infrastructure improvements on some simple things that we can do, and we're bringing those forward next week.
okay. And then we'll plan for next year to use, because I think there'll be more increment next year, maybe. Or, no.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Mr. Williams had a
It
question
does
on
don't
that.
end up in
No, go ahead, please.
a lot of property tax appeals.
Please, just go.
Okay. The other, I had a couple of people ask me about broadband, and I thought that we had said that we were going to get a press release out about that. Do we have?
Yes.
We have a meeting scheduled with the consultant next week, actually, which was the earliest date I could get a follow-up meeting to the one that was canceled due to illnesses. So that meeting is scheduled. And if we're looking for a press release, I mean, all I could do is lay out a process that we're following, and when I do speak to people on the phone, I explain the process that we're going through.
Well, because I thought we had asked staff to put out a press
That'll need
release.
to go out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And the focus of this press release, because I want to be clear on that, I mean, you know, we're in the preliminary stages of starting this thing up again.
Yeah.
So if that's what you wanted to say, I mean, we can actually do that. I don't have an objection to that at all.
Yeah, I think that
I just don't want to get into the weeds with people on what we're doing, because I think we're trying to define that at this point with the consultant.
I understand. It's just that it's just been radio silent.
I
and
know.
And for way too long, and that was one of the things that we wanted to prevent from happening. And so if we can get that out. And the other has a communication, because I think we had also directed staff to send out notifications to those who had made bids and were part of that process, informing them that we had rejected all bids or that we had an issue with bids or whatever. Has that communication gone out to those entities?
It has not, but we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All
Anything
right.
further?
Yeah, all right.
Mr. Williams, did you have something to add?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Timian.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll be the first to say that I appreciated the ceremonies for the bridge last week. I got to walk up and down the bridge with 10,000 of my closest friends, and it was a lot of fun, and it made me really proud to be a member of this council and to be a member of the Quad Cities. And it was a great experience that I would happily repeat. It was wonderful. I'm just
And-
very, very happy. Thank you.
Thank you to our
Look at building
chiefs
another bridge.
sitting here who made it run smoothly for us. It was really a pleasure. Thank you. Mr. Moyer.
Thank you. That was going to be my point. It was a really wonderful, well-run event, and really appreciate I know the countless extra hours that were demanded of our two chiefs. Thank you very much.
Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Waldron.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Schmidt.
Well, most of the things I wanted to say have been taken.
Sorry.
Oh, well.
You're in that position. Yeah.
I did want to offer, though, a special thanks out to all my friends and family who've served in the Navy and all those who've served as well on this anniversary. The bridge was a really amazing experience, and the dignitary stuff and the getting to hang out was cool, but I think my favorite part was with Alderman Timian when we walked up that bridge amongst the crowd and just the awe people had. And it was a really great experience and an opportunity to see people connecting, run into a lot of our staff who were checking out the bridge too, and it was a wonderful day. And I love when we have that opportunity to do that together with people. One other thing is, as many of us probably remember, it is the Christmas season. And I would just encourage all of us to kind of live by example and putting our city first, and as much as we can, shopping local. I've been working very hard on my Christmas list to find things that cannot be purchased on Amazon. And I just would encourage us all to think that through and know that, it has been, every year is important for our local businesses, and whenever we can put them first, I think that's something we can do as our personal example and how we operate our city. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I do have several things to catch you up on. One, I did ask Administrator Vitas about ward maps updates, given that we've gone through a new census. So I believe it's zoning and planning goes through that process, and he's going to get me a timeline on what that looks like. I believe the most information we had was that Ward 4 lost the most
Yeah, I believe it was Ward 4
population.
lost the most population,
they're-
about 256 people.
So that update will be coming. That update will be coming. I wanted you to know that at this juncture, with ARPA, with infrastructure dollars coming our way, with moving cities out of the pandemic situation they've been in, I think it's a good time for myself and any of you that are interested to take advantage of professional development opportunities through some of the organizations that sponsor that. And so there are funds available for me to attend the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Mayor's Innovation Project in January. So I plan to do that and bring back a lot of information for you.
Stickers?
But I think that especially with that infrastructure bill passage, there's important information for municipalities that can be gleaned there. Number 3 for you is that in my role as a liaison with other agencies, I wanted you to know Mr. Vitas and I were a part of a significant meeting this morning online, sponsored by Bi-State, where we spoke with our local reps, Swanson, Halpin, representatives from Macomb, and Mr. Anderson, another Senate member, Wynn, I'm blanking on his last name, Henry County, Rock Island County, because the issue of our floodways map changing is a huge issue and will have a distinct economic impact on us, Moline in particular. We're working on getting the different maps in front of us, but we do know that Moline has the most parcels affected by this, and there's no provisions for helping property owners make the adjustments they would have to for drainage and storage of water, et cetera. So it's been an issue that's been ongoing. I've signed letters of support with my colleagues on this side of the river, trying to advocate for better data usage to make these maps, because we will lose development to the other side of the river. It's already happened for one of our neighboring cities. And so we're looking at what avenues we still have to advocate for our area based on better data collection, simply because the areas they're predicting for flooding have not flooded. Many of them have not flooded because of the mitigation efforts that already have been used. So I wanted you to know about that situation, because our future budgets depend on us having the most flexibility for development as possible. Also, for your reading pleasure, 1, 2,
Oh, let's just pass it
3,
out homework.
Homework assignment.
Yes, yes.
you know, if
We
you
never
want.
had homework before. I love homework. No, I hate homework.
This is the latest draft of the childcare workforce infrastructure program that I asked you to support, which you did for the most part. Thank you. I told you I would take into consideration your concerns about salaries or wages and the locations of people who were working in these establishments, the new and continuing. And I'm happy to say that provision I was able to leave out, because there are plenty of other things to fund. And also I learned on Thursday that the Pritzker administration is doing something similar. I had no idea they were working on this, but they are actually prioritizing wages through that program. So it is quite possible that a wonderful marriage of local support and state support can help get these businesses going in the direction we're hoping that they do, to provide childcare so that our residents can get back to work. So this, 1 second, I just want you to know that the advisory committee consisted of KJ Whitley, and I have so many thanks to give her for her leadership in putting this together. I'll remind you, it's based on the micro business loan program. Kate Jennings, who is the head of Q2030 and has child care as one of the pillars for that organization. Marcy Mendenhall, who you've heard from, who's the head of Skip Along Child and Family Services. And Jeff Cornelius from the YMCA, Two Rivers YMCA. So we had a nice broad perspectives and experience in the industry as well as on staff. And Margaret Christopoulos is going to take another look through. She's already weighed in on some of the legal things, some of the requirements we have. But I wanted you to know that this is almost near completion and ready to advertise, because we want to get people applying, and we have up to a month of time to make the decisions, and et cetera. So we can always address questions next week too.
Yeah, would you mind sending a copy of this digitally that we can read through, search, and that'd be very helpful.
So that's that. And lastly, just wanted you to know, Mr. Kuhlenbeck especially, that the residents have very much, I have been getting feedback on some of the lighted stop signs. They very much appreciate the one at 41st, I believe it is. So people who are living down there who want to get over to Ben Butterworth Parkway, just like a small thing that is making their day every day. Yeah, that one, sorry. But I just wanted you to know that those efforts that either the council has gone to approve that, or you have gone to with your staff to get it done, means a lot. So the more we can do for our residents, the better. Thank you. That's all I have. How about you, Mr. Vitas?
Just a few things real quick. I know earlier this evening I saw people mingling, so I just want to make sure that everybody gets properly introduced on the public record. So with us tonight, we have the interim directors that were brought on. We have Mr. Michael Schenk. Michael, you can just stand up so everybody can see you for the camera. That's great. Michael, of course, is working as the interim city engineer alongside Laura Clower. And we're looking forward to having Michael on board. We had some great meetings already this morning, kind of kicking things off. So we're off and we're running already. So I want to thank you for coming here. And he did manage to get a nice warm winter coat and some boots. I told him he doesn't have to worry about it. It's not going to snow. But
Thank you.
but we'll see if that happens. So that's,
Hope you're right.
that's great. And then alongside Michael, we have Brad Fink, who is here as well from former Village of Wakanda, as you know, and he is the interim Public Works Director going forward. And we also had a meeting this morning with the staff as well to start going over a lot of the major issues and plans going forward and communications and how we'll do that. So we're going to work through those gymnastics, so if we miss anything, please let us know. But that's the plan going forward there. I know listening in on our calls, I don't know if he's actually out there or not, probably not, but I think at the next meeting on the 14th, Charles Graves, who is serving as the interim director for community and economic development, we had a great meeting with him and the CED staff today as well. And I think they hit him with both barrels. I mean, talk about an exciting meeting. They had a laundry list of what they expect and what they need. So, and he was willing to accept it all. We'll see if he's on the call tomorrow, right, KJ? I'll tell you, after I heard that list, I think I would be thinking twice. But no, it was exciting to have the meetings today and know that staff is getting the assistance that they need to really advance all of the council's strategic plans and the budget for next year. And I guess I want to thank you all for what's been a very invigorating budget preparation, development, negotiation session the last several months, culminating in what we're at today. And we're really looking forward to, operationalizing all of the hard work that the council put into the budget alongside the staff. So I want to thank you for all your efforts and patience with us and our patience with you as well. It's been a very interesting lesson, and I think we've got a great budget going forward, and I think we're going to deliver great results here in Moline. And that's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Any other staff miscellaneous? No? Okay. And there's no further public comment? And we have no executive session?
Yeah.
We do?
Your Honor, I make a motion that the council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C2.
Second.
I knew
Roll call, please.
Sorry.
Sorry, you got that. It was Williams and Went.
No.
Roll call, please.
Yep.
No.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
All right, we're in closed session.
Welcome.